Hi, I'm Sean Carruthers, and welcome to How Do I on Butterscotch.com. In this series, we're going to take a look at how to use the iPad 2 from Apple. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the iPad 2 and see what's new in terms of the hardware. Now, the iPad 2 is an evolution more than a revolution in terms of the tablet space. It looks very similar to the old iPad. In fact, we've got the old one right here, and at a quick glance, they do look very similar from the front. Now, there are a few differences, which we'll talk about. It has made some improvements in terms of performance and in terms of the hardware inside, which aren't necessarily apparent right from the quickest look at the outside. Now, there are a couple things from a hardware perspective, looking at the form factor, that are different, and we'll take a look at all of those right now. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the iPad 2 is that it's thinner and lighter than the original iPad. Now, while that one wasn't exactly the heaviest thing in the world, it was quite light. The lighter nature of the iPad 2 will make it easier to carry around in the hand for an extended period, which is what you do when you're using an iPad. You hold it in one hand and interact with it with the other. The thinner nature of it as well makes it a little bit easier to hold. The unfortunate thing about this, of course, is that the thinner nature of the iPad 2 means that it won't fit into the same accessories that it had before in terms of, say, wraparound skins or folio cases that actually clamped it into place using things that were a bit more fixed in width. So you may have to get new accessories that will fit the iPad 2, but for some that's going to be a small price to pay considering the added portability of the new iPad 2. For something that you're going to be carrying around with you and interacting with a lot while holding it in your hands, thin and light is always a good asset. Now, from the front, you'll see that the screen is exactly the same size. There's in fact no difference with the screen on this one. It is still 9.7 inches, and it is in fact still the same resolution, 4:3 and 1024 by 768. So no Retina display in this, no higher resolution. You'll have to live with the same screen. Maybe in the next generation we'll see something that's a little bit higher resolution and maybe a different size. Now, what you will notice on the front panel here that wasn't there before is a camera. Now, a lot of people were thinking that there should have been a camera in the original model of the iPad. There wasn't. Now it's been added. The front-facing camera here is a VGA, which means it's 640 by 480 resolution. Now, that's not very high resolution, but it is adequate for when you're talking face-to-face using video conferencing. Now, there is an application on here called FaceTime, and that's what that's designed for. On the back, you'll also notice another camera, and this one is 720p, 1280 by 720 resolution, which gives you high definition potential here when you're shooting video, and it also allows you to shoot things that you're looking away from. So if you're shooting a photograph, for example, and you want to look at the screen to frame the photograph, you can do that. You don't have to actually point it towards you. You can actually hold it up and point it at something else and shoot it that way. Now, there aren't any other huge changes along the back panel here. You still see the Apple logo in the middle. You'll see the amount of memory that's on board in this one and the serial number, all the other things you need to see on the back as before. What you will see around the outside is a slight difference in the back. You'll see things that are along the side edges of this that you wouldn't have seen directly beforehand because the new design actually tapers down. That's because it's thinner and it does taper that way. So on the right hand side, you'll see the switch you can use either as orientation lock or as a mute switch, and you also see the volume control buttons. Along the top panel, as before, you'll see the headphone jack and you'll see the power switch. Along the bottom, you'll see the universal connector for connecting it to your computer. You also see that the speakers that used to be directly on the bottom of the iPad have now been moved around to the back panel, still located at the bottom, but they are there on the back instead. Now, again, a lot of the changes inside the iPad 2 are built inside. You can't really see much of them from the outside. There is a better processor inside. It's faster, it provides better graphics, so it means better performance inside all of the applications that are, say, games or anything that requires a lot of processing power. The iPad 2 also adds gyroscopes in addition to the accelerometers that were found in the original version of the iPad. So now when you're playing a game where you're holding up the iPad and rocking it around in order to move inside the game, you have added sensitivity. You now have 6 different axes that you can use for determining how the iPad is controlling the movement on the screen. Now, with the update on the design for the iPad 2, Apple's also brought out some new accessories like the smart cover or the HDMI dongle that are designed to be used with the iPad 2. We'll talk about those more in an upcoming episode in this series. For more on this particular episode, you can check out the show notes at butterscotch.com, and you can see all of the other parts in the series at butterscotch.com as well.